The noise is getting louder in Dallas, and if you've been paying attention, you can feel it building. This isn't just another offseason for the Cowboys. This feels like a turning point, a moment where the franchise has to decide exactly who it wants to be moving forward. Because right now, everything is on the table. Big trades, aggressive draft moves, and a complete defensive identity shift are all very real possibilities. And it starts with one name that has Cowboys Nation buzzing louder than anything else: Myles Garrett. The idea of bringing in one of the most dominant defensive players in football isn't just fantasy anymore. It's becoming something tangible. The Cowboys are in a unique position that almost no other team can match. 2 first-round picks inside the top 20. That alone changes everything. While other teams might try to piece together offers with future picks or mid-tier players, Dallas can walk into negotiations with something clean, direct, and incredibly valuable. 2 first-round picks. Immediate impact. No complications. That kind of offer forces the Browns to listen. And when you start thinking about what Myles Garrett would look like in a Cowboys uniform, it becomes almost impossible to ignore. This is a player who changes the geometry of the field. Offensive coordinators don't just game plan for him. They build entire protections around him. He dictates where the ball goes before the snap even happens. Now imagine pairing that kind of presence with the Cowboys' evolving defensive vision. This isn't just about adding talent. It's about redefining identity. Because last season exposed something uncomfortable. The Cowboys' defense, especially against the pass, wasn't just inconsistent. At times, it was completely overwhelmed. That's why this offseason feels so different. The front office has already started reshaping the secondary, bringing in new pieces and leaning heavily into the philosophy of defensive coordinator Christian Parker. This is a coach whose rise has been fueled by his ability to develop defensive backs and create versatile, aggressive units. And the moves reflect that. This isn't random. This is intentional. But here's where things get really interesting. Because while the Myles Garrett conversation dominates headlines, the Cowboys are simultaneously positioning themselves for a massive draft. And not just any draft. One that could define the next era of this team. Sitting at picks 12 and 20, Dallas has options. Real options. They can stay put and let the board fall to them. They can package those picks and move up for a blue-chip prospect. Or they can go all in on defense and completely rebuild that side of the ball in one weekend. And make no mistake, they are seriously considering that last option. You can see it in their presence at pro days. You can see it in who they're meeting with. You can see it in the type of players being linked to them. Defensive backs, edge rushers, linebackers. This isn't subtle. The Cowboys are telling you exactly what they think their biggest problem is. And they're not wrong. Last season's defensive struggles weren't just about execution. They were about structure, depth, and adaptability. The modern NFL demands defenses that can disguise, rotate, and survive in space. Dallas didn't consistently have that. That's why names like Caleb Downs are so intriguing. Here's a player who, on pure talent, probably belongs in the top 5. But because of positional value and some perceived limitations, there's a real chance he could fall. And if he does, the Cowboys could be staring at one of the biggest steals of the entire draft. This is where things get fascinating from a strategic standpoint. Because teams historically undervalue safeties. We've seen elite talents slide before. Players who should have gone much earlier end up falling into the laps of teams willing to trust the tape over the narrative. If that happens again, Dallas has to be ready. And if you're enjoying this kind of deep breakdown and want more insight into how the Cowboys can reshape their entire future, make sure you subscribe right now and stay locked in, because what happens over the next few weeks could change everything for this franchise. Now let's take this a step further, because it's not just about landing one player. It's about building a complete defensive ecosystem. There's a scenario, and it's not as unrealistic as it sounds, where the Cowboys go almost entirely defense in this draft. Corner at 12. Edge at 20, then continue stacking depth and versatility throughout the rest of their picks. Imagine adding a lockdown corner like Mansour Delane, a player who can immediately step in and stabilize the outside. Then pairing that with a pass rusher like Akeem Masitter, someone who brings explosiveness and flexibility to the front. Suddenly, you're not just patching holes. You're creating layers. You're building a defense that can attack from multiple angles. A defense that doesn't rely on one star, but instead overwhelms opponents with waves of talent. And then you factor in developmental pieces. Athletic defensive backs who can grow into roles. linebackers who bring different skill sets, interior defenders who can anchor the run game. It all starts to come together. This is how you change a unit's trajectory in one offseason. But here's the reality that makes this even more compelling. The draft never goes exactly how you expect. There's always a run. There's always a surprise. There's always that moment where the board completely flips, and suddenly all your top targets are gone. The Cowboys have to be ready for that. If the defensive players start flying off the board early, Dallas could find itself in a situation where the value just isn't there at 12. And that's where discipline becomes critical. Do you reach for need? Or do you trust your board? The smart move, and history backs this up, is to take the best player available. Even if it's not defense. Even if it doesn't fill an immediate hole. Because elite talent always finds a way to matter. We've seen it before. Teams that stick to their evaluations and draft the best player tend to come out ahead in the long run. It's about building a roster full of difference makers, not just checking positional boxes. And for the Cowboys, that philosophy could be the difference between another frustrating season and a true resurgence. Now let's talk about one more name that perfectly represents what this defense could become. Avion Terrell. This is the kind of prospect that embodies everything Dallas needs. Quick, instinctive, aggressive, and versatile. A corner who doesn't just cover but actively disrupts. A player who forces turnovers, who competes in the run game, who brings energy to every snap. He's not perfect. There are concerns about size and physicality against bigger receivers. But the production is undeniable. The instincts are real. And in the right system, he could thrive. And that's the key. Fit matters just as much as talent. Under Christian Parker, the Cowboys are clearly looking for players who can do multiple things. Players who can move around, who can adapt, who can create chaos. Terrell fits that mold perfectly. So when you step back and look at the bigger picture, this offseason isn't just about one move. It's about alignment. Front office, coaching staff, and roster construction all pointing in the same direction. Aggressive, flexible, defense first. Whether it's pulling off a blockbuster trade for Myles Garrett, landing a falling star like Caleb Downs, or stacking the draft with defensive playmakers, the Cowboys are positioning themselves to make a statement. The question is whether they'll execute. Because the opportunity is there. The assets are there. The vision is starting to take shape. Now it's about turning potential into reality. And if they get this right, if they truly capitalize on this moment, we could be looking back at this offseason as the one that changed everything. So as we get closer to draft night, keep your eyes on Dallas. Watch how the board develops. Watch how aggressive they are. Because one bold move, one unexpected slide, or one disciplined decision could redefine this entire franchise. And when it's all said and done, when the dust settles and the new roster takes shape, we'll finally know if the Cowboys took the leap they've been building toward. If you want to stay ahead of every move, every rumor, and every strategic shift, make sure you subscribe and turn on notifications, because this story is far from over, and the next chapter could be the most important one yet.